What is the real-world range of the new electric Renault Scenic? My name is Bastiaan and welcome to Recharging. And welcome to the range test of the Renault Scenic E-Tech 100% electric long range. Because yes, that is the car that is standing over here. So, the long range version. That means a 87 kWh battery pack and a WLTP range of around 620 kilometers. Am I be able to do that in the real world? Let's find out. What is the test procedure? Well, I will do one test at 100 kilometers per hour, and during that test I will also calculate how much energy I can get out of the battery. Then I will do a consumption test at 90 and 130 kilometers per hour. How much energy I can get out of the battery, the consumption. Based on those numbers I can calculate the range. Then the conditions. I am dividing the test in 2 days as normally, but the weather has changed. So during my 90 and 130 kilometers per hour test, it is pretty good actually. It is around 22 degrees Celsius. But when I do my 100 kilometers per hour test, there is more wind and it is colder, around 15 degrees Celsius. Sorry, it's just the way it is. So the car is charging up just for show. Let's go to the test. It is currently Saturday evening, 21:30 and 22 degrees Celsius, and I am currently doing my 90 kilometers per hour consumption test. When I drove the other way, I had a positive elevation change, so that means I am going up, and then the consumption was hovering at around 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. But to get close to the WLTP range, the car should end up with around 14 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So that means, well, I am driving this way, I have a negative elevation change, so that means I'm going down. So the consumption should drop from 16 to 14 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And I really doubt if it would do that. I think in the end, it would be pretty good if I end up with 14.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, but 14, yeah, I don't think that is going to happen. And the conditions are pretty good at the moment actually. I am driving on the left because I am driving a lot quicker now because I am doing my 130 kilometers per hour consumption run. And what surprises me is that the average consumption is hovering at around 26 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and this is a lot better than what I expected based on the result of the 90 kilometers per hour consumption run. Apparently a higher speed has less of an impact on this car than I thought. Maybe it has a good drag coefficient. I don't know what the drag coefficient is actually, but again, it is a surprising result because also I am having a negative elevation at the moment. I have already turned around, so the consumption will only get better. Okay, so I am driving in a very dark Germany doing my 100 kilometers per hour test, and the reason why I am driving in Germany is because going east there is less wind than going west. Yeah, it is pretty windy today. And yes, today is a different day than when I did my 90 and 130 kilometers per hour test. The reason for that is because, well, time. I don't have the time to do it all in one evening. So that is why I do it in 2 evenings. And I always try to find an evening where the weather is the same or almost the same, but the weather is plummeting down. When I did my 90 and 130 kilometers per hour test, it was 22 degrees Celsius still. At 21:30 it's currently 16 and it will be getting colder. Yeah, the weather is getting worse. Autumn is coming. Autumn is coming. But anyway, 130 kilometers per hour test, the car has used 10% state of charge. On that 10% I have driven around 51 kilometers. So the range, it seems like right now, is 510 kilometers while driving 100 kilometers per hour. The average consumption at the moment is 16.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So that would mean that I can get around 83 kilowatt hours out of the battery pack. But I thought I was going to get around 87 because, what the hell are you doing, car? What the hell? It should be around 87 of usable capacity, I thought, instead of 87 of gross capacity, and then the usable is less. I have to look that up. Maybe EV database will can say something about it, maybe. But anyway, it seems like right now I can only get around 83 kilowatt hours out of the battery pack. So yeah, if that is the result, then it is what it is. I also have to say that I currently have tailwind, so when I turn around, the consumption will go up. Yeah, and that's it. So I will keep on driving, give another update when I have used 33% state of charge, and then, yeah, that's it. Okay, so 33% update, and the consumption is not going into the right direction. I have turned around, so that means I have headwind at the moment, but the average consumption is 18.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and it is still going up. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great at all. The distance that I have driven is around 150 kilometers, so the range, it seems like right now while driving 100 kilometers per hour is 450 kilometers, around that. Again, not great, not great. But let's see with the result how much it really is and how much energy I can get out of the battery. Alright, the result of the range test. Let's first start with the 100 kilometers per hour test. Because I started the test with 76% state of charge, finished that test with 27, so that means I've used 49%. On that 49% I have driven 216.4 kilometers. So the range while driving 100 kilometers per hour is 442 kilometers. The average consumption was 19.1 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So combining all these numbers, and the amount of energy that I could get out of the battery is 85 kilowatt hours. And I have to say, this result is a bit disappointing based on the consumption that I got during my 90 test, because yes, I did my 90 test before the 100 kilometers per hour test. But I also have to keep in mind that during my 90 test, it was a lot better weather than during my 100 kilometers per hour test, because yes, I did them on different days. And as I have already said, I tried to find days where the weather conditions are pretty much the same, but the weather just turned and it's not possible during my test period. Because during my 100 kilometers per hour test, it was around 15 degrees Celsius and it was a bit windy. So this is autumn, early spring range. Yes, it really is. I think in summer, while driving 100 kilometers per hour, you can get close to around 500 kilometers of range. Alright, so that is the result for the 100 kilometers per hour test. Then the result of the 90 and 130 kilometers per hour test. And during that test, for some reason, the weather was still good. I mean, for some reason the weather has turned, but during those tests, the weather was still good. Because during my 90 test, it was 22 degrees Celsius and there was barely any wind. And during that test, I got an average consumption of 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So based on the 85 kilowatt hours that I could get out of the battery, means that you get a range of 567 kilometers, which is still not the WLTP range of around 620, 625 kilometers. And I think 22 degrees Celsius is pretty good conditions without any wind or barely any wind. So yeah, reaching that WLTP range of 620, 25 kilometers, oh yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's probably not possible, I think. Probably not. You can get close to 600 maybe, but 620, I don't think that's doable. I really don't. Then the result of the 130 kilometers per hour test. Again, 22 degrees Celsius, barely any wind. I got an average consumption of 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So that means a range of around 340 kilometers while driving at those speeds. And yeah, I mean, the difference between the 90 and 100 kilometers per hour test is huge. It's more than I thought it would be, even though the weather was worse. So maybe it was because of the wind. I don't know what the drag coefficient is of this car, to be honest. But yeah, this is just the result. And that is also the end of the video. So thank you a lot for watching. If you have been, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And then as always, to be continued.